Uh-oh.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Steve Krenz?
I'm here.
Good. JJ Gonzalez?
I'm here.
Leroy Lopez? I see he is here. Susan Martin? She's here. Susan? Miss Serna?
Present.
Estamos bien.
Great. Susan? I think I'll show her as present.
Just a reminder, everyone will have to unmute themselves. I muted everyone to try to get rid of the feedback, so you'll have to unmute yourself individually when you speak.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Susan said she's okay calling by phone. Okay. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the
and to
republic
the
for which it
republic
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
under
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
and justice for all. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, approval agenda. Do we have any amendments or table withdrawn items?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
This is Frank. I'd move to approve the agenda as submitted.
So move.
Steve,
Okay.
I approved a second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes of May 20th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
So move. I'll
Okay, all in
second.
favor say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. I hope you guys can bear with me a little bit. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Okay, consent agenda, final orders, item 4. Okay, this item was tabled last meeting in order to because there was an amendment which was added to the conditions, so it was tabled till this next meeting.
Move to approve the order.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Karen, can I get a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Krenz?
Yes.
Miss Serna?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. JJ Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
And Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, next on the agenda is new business, item number 5, case number 20-5120, Ann Sahin, accessory dwelling unit variance. Miguel is the case manager. Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, I will be presenting the case for Miguel tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Ann Sullen, applicant, Daniel Werwath, agent, request a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3 to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit. In addition, the applicant requests a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4, utilities, to allow separate utilities for the proposed accessory dwelling. The property is zoned as rural residential. The property is located at 11 Vestal Way within Section 28, Township 16 North, Range 10 East, SDA 2, Commission District 4. The applicant is the owner of the property as evidenced by warranty deed recorded in the office of the county clerk on February 3rd, 2004. The applicant is requesting a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3 to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit. In addition, the applicant requests a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 to allow separate utilities for the proposed accessory dwelling. The agent, Mr. Werwath, is a friend of the property owner who intends to purchase the property should the variance be approved. The property consists of 8.32 acres. It has an existing 793 square foot dwelling unit, which is occupied by the applicant. There are existing utilities on the lot which serve the dwelling unit. They consist of electrical, sewer, and a well. The existing residence is served by a small driveway located off the older portion of Vestal Way to the north. Staff have not been able to locate any permits for the residence or additions made to the residence, but air photography shows the structure there in 1992. The applicant states in the letter of intent that the existing residence was constructed sometime in the 1930s. The property is zoned rural residential with a minimum lot size requirement of 1 dwelling per 10 acres. The applicant's property consists of 8.32 acres, which does not meet code requirements to subdivide the property into 2 lots or allow for a second primary residence. If the variances are approved, Mr. Werwath intends to purchase the property from the applicant and construct a new residence on the property approximately 200 plus feet south of the existing residence. Mr. Werwath's residence will be the primary residence, and the existing dwelling unit will be identified as an accessory dwelling unit, which the applicant will continue to reside in. Mr. Werwath states, according to the purpose and findings of the accessory dwelling unit, accessory dwelling units are an important means by which persons can provide separate and affordable housing for elderly, single-parent, and multi-generational family situations. The property is currently the residence of Miss Salen, who built her modest home gradually over the last 30 years and who has lived on the site since the 1970s, originally in her grandfather's stone cabin. If approved, this variance would allow for our family to build a modest home and for Miss Salen to stay in her home and age in place on her family's historical land. The reason for the variance request is that there is no buildable area in close proximity to the existing dwelling that could be served by the existing drive and utilities that isn't impacted by steep 15 to 30% plus grade slopes, several deeply incised arroyos, and substantial outcroppings of bedrock. While it appears in the map that there is relatively flat area directly adjacent to the existing structure, this is in fact impacted by a 38-foot access and utility easement, as well as significant bedrock outcroppings. The area shown on the western boundary is similarly impacted by an access easement, as well as setback rules that do not provide enough developable area to support a house without a lot line adjustment. Vestal Way also becomes a very rough 2-track road just beyond the existing residence and has several slope issues that would likely require variances for build-out. Mr. Werwath further states, the most feasible development site on the property is located at approximately 200 plus foot distance south from the existing structure and 450 feet plus from the pole-mounted transformer, which according to PNM makes it impossible to connect to the existing transformer and power pole because of the distance from the transformer. The distance also includes substantial rock outcroppings and bedrock ledge, an arroyo with exposed bedrock floor, and substantial trees located on slopes where disturbance would cause significant risk of erosion and underground utility trenching is not possible. The proposed building site is adjacent to a newly constructed road and power access that was built in the last year to serve a residence that was recently constructed at 1 Vestal Way on the parcel immediately to the west of the subject property. The construction of this home included the creation of a county permitted 14-foot access road and a subterranean PNM electrical line that crosses the entire south edge of the subject property, an easement for the benefit of the adjacent property. It would be our intent to utilize this newly constructed SLDC compliant road for all but the last 70 feet of access, as well as accessing electrical power from this newly created buried supply line. Staff responded as follows. Staff has conducted a site visit at 11 Vestal Way and has confirmed that there is limited buildable area that is within close proximity of the existing residence due to terrain constraints, rock outcroppings, drainage ways, and slopes 30% or greater, potential access and utility easement issues, setback requirements, overhead utilities, isolated slope areas, and future location for upgraded septic system. Staff has confirmed that the portion of Vestal Way that extends past the west side of the applicant's residence is undeveloped. During staff site visit, staff did verify that there is an existing 14-foot driveway that runs along the eastern boundary of the applicant's property, which provides access to a newly constructed residence located on Track 2. The neighbor's house is identified as One Vestal Way. The neighbor's driveway appears to have been constructed within the 30-foot access and utility easement, illustrated in Plat Book 546, page 20. Staff, along with the applicant's agent, has determined that there is an alternative buildable location on the property that is relatively flat that would allow for a residence. The alternative building site is approximately 100 feet to the southwest of the proposed site. If Mr. Warwath were to develop that at that alternative buildable location, he would need to request different variances, which could include disturbance of significant trees, disturbance of rock outcroppings, and disturbance of slopes 30% or greater. Staff believes that the location proposed by Mr. Warwath in his application would be the areas that would require fewer variances. Staff determined if the primary residence was to be constructed at the proposed location, the residence would be screened by existing mature native vegetation. The location would also be the least intrusive in protecting existing vegetation, rock outcroppings, and significant trees. Staff agrees that the sharing of a septic system and electricity is hindered significantly by the existing terrain. Mr. Warwath has asserted that the only utilities that cannot be shared are the existing septic and the existing electrical line. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria for the variances requested, and staff has also provided responses as stated in the staff report. This matter went before the Sustainable Land Development Code hearing officer on May 13th, 2021. The hearing officer supported the application based on the evidence and testimony presented at the public hearing. The hearing officer recommended approval of a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3 to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit, and a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 to allow separate utilities for a proposed accessory dwelling unit. Recommendation. Staff and the hearing officer recommended approval of the requested variances subject to the following conditions. Mr. Chair, may I enter those conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the variances subject to the conditions stated above, and that the Planning Commission make its findings of fact and conclusions of law. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Vicky. Does the commission have any questions of Vicky or staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Steve?
Now, this might be for my own edification, but I'm trying to understand why the driveway that's being requested is a variance. Because I'm looking at the submitted documents, looking at this sketch, improvement location report sketch of improvements of Track 1 at 11 Vestal Way, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Does staff have that before them at this point?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, Commission Member Krenz, can you state one more time the document that you're referring to?
Okay, this was in the documents that were given to us, and it is one of the, within the document, let me see if I can get the name of the document to start with. This starts with letter of request. And it is then within this document, there's a number of attachments. And as I scroll through the document, I go through pictures of the site, and I get down to a slope analysis, and then right after the slope analysis is a diagram called Improvement Location Report Sketch of Improvements of Track 1 at 11 Vestal Way, Santa Fe, New Mexico. So do you have that sketch?
Yes, I see that document.
Okay. So first of all, I want to make sure that I understand where this driveway is being proposed. As I understand this, there's this there's this easement that's running essentially northeast to southwest that goes to track 2. And it's marked as dirt road, 20-foot wide easement, and it has a note, 20-foot ingress, egress, and utility easement for the exclusive use of track 2. Is that off of that easement? Is that where this driveway is being requested?
Mr. Chair, Commission Member Krentz, that is correct. That's where they are proposing to bring in their driveway from that easement.
Okay. So my question is this. Why is this considered a new driveway when essentially all this construction work and access to this building that they're requesting is within and contiguous to their own property? They're not accessing any public road for this driveway. It's coming off of this this easement, which is already on their property.
Right, Mr. Chair, Commission members, you are correct. So they will have to construct a driveway from that easement to the location of the proposed home. And so the variance is actually doesn't have to do with the slopes or how the driveway is being constructed. It has to do with the fact that for an accessory dwelling unit, they're required to share a driveway with the main house. So because this branches off of a different access easement, that is what they are requesting the variance for.
Even though this 70-foot of driveway they're constructing is all within their own property and off of their own easement.
Yes, that is correct because the driveway is separate from the driveway that is serving the existing dwelling unit right now.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Committee Member Krentz, just to kind of give you that is its own road. It's on their property, and I understand it is, and what your question is, but it is its own road, and it has its own name, and it accesses Lot 2. So therefore, that's why the separate request is being asked for as well.
Yeah, and also, John, to add to that, I think also if that road, if it needed some variances on it, it would have been possible, but you're calling it administratively, right?
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay. Does the commission have any other questions of staff? Okay, I have a question. Vicky, I think I'm going back to the old days. I'm getting kind of confused between what's the difference between now and these days between an accessory structure and accessory dwelling unit.
So, Mr. Chair, an accessory structure would be it's a structure that you don't live in. So it would be considered like a garage, a shed, a carport. That would be an accessory structure. An accessory dwelling is actually habitable, as a residence. So you can actually live in an accessory dwelling unit.
So an accessory structure can still not be lived in.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Can they be converted?
If they are converted to a dwelling, they would have to meet the accessory dwelling unit standards and guidelines, or meet the density to have a second dwelling unit on the property.
Okay, I think that's where my little catch is. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I had a question here about the scope of work for the proposed driveway. That thing's it's a minor thing, so the disturbing of the slopes can be approved administratively. And that's all I have for now. Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay. Frank, please do.
My understanding is that they are going to build a dwelling unit on that, and that in fact will become the primary residence, and the other residence will be the accessory dwelling unit. But we're not doing that today. We're just, what are we allowing the exceptions for?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Member Katz. So when somebody comes in to apply for an accessory dwelling unit, the regulations in the SLDC state that they have to share a driveway and they have to share utilities with the main residence. So both structures would have to share the same driveway and utilities. So this
Okay.
request would be to allow that separate. separate septic system and separate driveway.
I understand. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And Vicky, I think the intent in those days was to minimize disturbing areas for driveways, right? That's what, when it first came out like that.
Mr. Chair, I think that was one of the reasons. And then also I think it was, intended for for the accessory dwelling unit to be used by family, and not necessarily rented out. So that was the thought behind it, is if they had to share utilities, then it was less likely that it would just be rented out, or used as a rental unit.
Yeah, and I remember we used to have an issue with people building roads along a fence line back to back, and we used to end up with really wide roads at one time, driveways. Okay, who's going to make the presentation? Okay, and you're representing Miss Salmon?
Miss Salen, yeah, and I'm Daniel Werwoff. I'm the agent, and if it's allowed, I'd like to share my screen and just provide a short PowerPoint presentation. Is that acceptable?
Mr. Worth?
Yes, please do.
May I swear you in first, sir?
Of course. And Miss Salen is here, and she will likely speak. Would you like her to be sworn in as well?
Sure, that would be great. Do you both swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth?
Yes.
I do.
All right, thank you very much. And state your name and address before you speak.
Before I speak.
Okay. I'm Daniel Werwoff. I live at 1611 Camino Porvenir in Santa Fe. And thank you all for having the opportunity for this hearing today and your time as volunteers and commissioners. I want to thank especially Santa Fe County staff who's been working through this with us since November of 2019 when John first came out and looked at the property with us. We've explored a lot of different permutations and possibilities here and believe that the one that you see in front of you is the best solution, the one that best upholds the intent of the Sustainable Land Development Code. Let's see here. I'm going to go to this slideshow. So really, we understand that variances are a unique solution in the land use code that are really for very unique situations. And I think what the case we're making here today is that this is both a unique site, it has unique history, unique geography, and the unique situation that it has a newly built road and utilities on the edge of the property already constructed. And then also a unique situation where we're trying to create a scheme that will allow someone to age in place on their property while also providing housing for me and my family. And I'll warn you, if you hear some weird noises in the background, I've got a 2-year-old who doesn't quite know how to be quiet during Zoom meetings. So apologize in advance for that. So this is the history of this site. Annie's grandfather, Stanley Vestal, was the person who homesteaded this land in the 1930s. He built by hand the stone cabin from which the main access from Old Santa Fe Trail gets its name, Stone Cabin Road, and has been in Annie's family ever since. Her brother still owns 2 adjacent parcels located to the west of the subject parcel. And Annie, do you want to say a couple things? Sure. And they can see you right here in that window.
Hi, I'm Annie Salen, and 11 Vestal Way, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Yeah, this is a picture of my grandfather. He came out here in a jalopy from Norman, Oklahoma with my grandmother, my mom, and my aunt, and in the 30s, and in 1935 built this stone cabin. And I came out here 50 years ago, lived in it for a while. And I feel the same romance that he did for being in Santa Fe and being just a stone's throw away, one corner of it, a stone's throw away from the original Old Santa Fe Trail. Since then, I've become a member, a close member of the diverse community around Cañada de los Alamos. And unfortunately, though, I've had to sell my property in order to help with my financial situation. And it was like a dream come true when Daniel and Lacey and I got together, and it turned out that as part of the sale, I could continue to live in my tiny little house. And that's just wonderful for me. Unfortunately, all the rock outcroppings around my house turn out to be a impediment in terms of the code, but we've worked really hard with the county, and they've been wonderful working with us, and particularly with Daniel, to find a solution. And I hope you agree that this solution that's been devised meets your approval. Thank you for your time.
Sammy.
Thank you.
So the first main issue is the unique terrain of this property. As you're driving out Old Santa Fe Trail, as you get to sort of the high point before you drop into Cañada de los Alamos proper, this property is off to the right. The mountain in the back there is Cerro Negro. And you can see Annie's house sort of perched there on the side of the mountain. It's a very unique property in terms of geographic terrain. And as the staff report described, there is no real adjacent area next to Annie's existing home where we could build a primary structure. You can see here, this is a good example. That's her house in the upper right-hand corner. And that's probably about a 40-foot drop over about a 40-foot span of distance. It just sort of falls right off, right around there. Not only that, but you can see the exposed bedrock. All those different things make it very difficult, if not impossible, to say create an underground utility connection for sewer or a power line connected across that distance. This is the area immediately to the south of the existing residence. And even if you could, the creation of these things would disturb things that are protected in the code. You can see here, this is that ILR that was discussed earlier. I don't know if you can see my cursor. That red line is the boundary of the access and utility easement. And you can see there the property, that easement comes right up to the edge of her yard fence. Then we have a power line here, and then this is all bedrock, and all this falls off. And where we're proposing to build isn't that far away. It's just divided by a very deeply incised arroyo. This is the site that we have proposed in the variance application. It is naturally flat, surrounded by mature trees, so screened from visibility for existing neighbors. Because it's relatively open, we won't have to remove too many trees to build there. And it, again, utilizes this existing buried power and roadway for all but the last 60 or 70 feet of access. And just to respond to Commissioner Katz's comment from earlier, if this variance is approved, we then go on to the normal building permitting process. So we would submit slopes analysis and the appropriate permit documents for construction. We just, being of relatively modest means, couldn't pay for those before the variance was approved. So that's why you're just seeing sort of a rough sketch conceptual plan. And so this is the conceptual plan. The dark lines are the existing roadways. The one forking to the south is the one that is newly constructed and would create the vast majority of the access to this other buildable site, which is 217 feet approximately from the closest part of the existing residence. As you can see, it needs a very short section of road to make that distance. We've looked at this really closely and don't believe that any variances would be required to construct the roadway or the structure on this location, other than the variances related to the accessory unit. One other thing to respond to a question from earlier, the other difference between accessory units and accessory dwelling units is to have separate driveway and utilities For an accessory unit, that is administratively approved. When it's a housing unit, it has to go through a variance process. That's one of the other differences in the code. And so that's why we're here today. If we were just building a garage that was serviced by a separate utility and driveway access, that is an administratively approved change. So the criteria that's used for evaluating variances within the code are that it's not contrary to the public interests. And we believe that this proposal has no negative impact on the public interest. In fact, any other development scenario would create the need for variances or disturbances that are expressly avoided in the current code. It has to have unusual and extraordinary circumstances, and we believe this site very much meets that criteria in terms of its unique topography, its history, the newly built infrastructure. And really, it's about, if you were to strictly apply the code in this situation, it would mean that Ms. Salen could not realize the same intensity of development that's allowed by right for all other properties in the county. And that is essentially the purpose of a variance at its core. And that ultimately the spirit of the Sustainable Land Development Code is upheld and that substantial justice is done. And here I've quoted again the purpose of the Sustainable Land Development Code for accessory dwelling units. And it's literally for this type of situation we're trying to create, where we can allow Annie to age in place on her family land. So with that, I'll stand for any questions from the Planning Commission or staff.
Okay, I have one question. On that drawing you just showed us, the road, the whole sketch of the roads and everything. I noticed it showed a culvert in the middle of that driveway. Has that culvert been sized yet?
It was sized in our drawings based on a culvert in the same. So there's actually a culvert across this same arroyo right about here at the bend in the newly built road. And so we sized it based on what they were required to build, since it's just a little bit further down the same arroyo.
So you just matched it?
Yeah, we just, in the conceptual drawings we provided, we just matched what was already there in terms of the existing, the one that was just built. It was just permitted. So it was done off the proper flow calculations and all that. But of course, that's not a final design. We'll hire a proper engineer and of course, do all the calculations and things that are needed.
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have any questions of the applicant?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. This is Steve.
Steve, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, you're bringing in new power to this dwelling. Am I understanding correctly that there's power going down this new road that you're showing on the site plan overview that goes to your neighbor, and that is underground?
Yeah, that is correct. There's existing high voltage underground power that runs along that roadway in that easement. So we would just be extending power underground for this, 60, 80 feet to the dwelling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the commission to the applicant? JJ, where are you?
I'm here. I have no questions, Mr. Chair, at this time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Being that there's no more questions from the commission, I'm going to open this to the public. Is there anybody out there that has any questions or comments about this project? Going once, going twice, going three times?
Mr. Chair, just a reminder, if there's anyone I see a call-in user, if they want to speak, they'll have to press *6 to unmute themselves.
Okay. Any callers out there? Please unmute yourselves. Okay, I would say not. What's the pleasure of the commission? Discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Please do, Mr. Katz.
First of all, I would like to thank the applicant for the presentation and express my happiness to have a variance requested that is for the purpose desired, and it's not to build something that is at the top of a ridge. Now, when would that come up? That everyone will see, but build something that is pretty much completely hidden from public view. I think there's every reason, and it's wonderful that they are making it possible for the current owner to remain on the property and age in place. And with that, I would make the finding that the criteria for the variances have been met as detailed by staff and move to approve the application.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman, I
very good.
second
Do I have
the,
do I have a
the
second?
motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I think Steve spoke up. Okay.
Yeah,
Please, can I get a roll call, please? Karen?
Sure. Yes.
All in
Mr.
favor?
Kren?
Say aye.
Oh. Mr. Krenz?
aye.
Ms. Serna?
Aye.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Mr. JJ Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Katz?
Aye.
And Chair Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you all. Congratulations. And again, these types of variances are the best ones to approve.
Thank you.
And good luck up there and as well. Okay. Next is the possible action on the findings of fact.
Mr. Chair, if I could just bring to the attention of the commission that the final order at the end, it does say that it was approved unanimously 6-0, and it actually should say 7-0. So if the planning commission chooses to approve it, we can make that change before you come in to sign and before we record the final order.
Okay. Do I still need a second on that motion, right?
We need a motion first, and I would move to approve
Oh.
the order with the 7 unanimous votes.
Okay,
would second
thank you,
that.
Frank. Do we have a second? Okay,
JJ?
JJ, can I? Yes. Can I get a roll call? All in favor, say aye.
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 And a roll call, and a roll call. Karen?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now I can.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm pushing the wrong buttons. Mr. Krenz?
Yes.
Ms. Serna?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. JJ Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
And Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 2, 4, 6, 7.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's go to petitions from the floor. Nothing there. Communications from the commission members.
Mr. Chairman, I have only a question for staff and I guess the members. When are we planning on meeting in person again?
Good question, Steve. Vicky, you have any idea?
Mr. Chair, commission members, the Board of County Commissioners has just recently started meeting in person. The public still isn't necessarily allowed, only maybe the applicants, staff, and the commissioners. And then, the recorder. So I don't know, we're still trying to work out when we would have the planning commission reconvene in person. There's, and try to meet social distancing with being that we have 7 planning commission members. So we're still working on that, but it may be within the next couple of months, and I will keep you posted. We'll let you know in advance when we do go back to in-person meetings.
Anything else, Steve?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Vicky, yeah, I have one thing here is that when for that John Stanton variances, after that house is built and it's inspected by county staff, could you get us some pictures sometime? I'd like to see how that comes out at the end.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we will make a note of that, and yeah, we will send you some pictures once it's been fully constructed.
I know that's I don't think we've ever done that before, but I'm curious. Okay, communications from the attorney.
Hi, this is Rachel Brown, and I don't have anything today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Matters from land use staff.
Mr. Chair, we don't have any matters to address today.
Not even from Paul Kavanaugh?
Nothing today, Charlie.
All right. Our next regular scheduled planning commission meeting is July 15th, 2021. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
There's a second.
Aye.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
right, no roll call needed. You guys all have a good one.
Take care, everybody. Happy
Take care, all.
summer.
Thank you. Take
Happy
care.
summer.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Stay cool.
Don't melt away, people.
Don't everybody burn at one time.